That morning, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I couldn't sleep, but because something in my heart pulled me. It was Memorial Day, and I knew I had to go to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. I had been there many times before, but each visit brought a different feeling. Today, there was a quiet heaviness in my chest, like the old memories were calling my name. When I arrived, the sun had just begun to rise, its light gently touching the damp ground after the night's rain. The black wall gleamed, reflecting the faces of those who had come to remember. I saw myself in it, an old man with silver hair, tired eyes, yet still brightened by the names etched in stone. I walked slowly along the wall, my eyes searching for a name I'd known well. Joey, my best friend from high school. We enlisted together, went through the worst of it in Vietnam side by side. But Joey never came home. He died in an ambush, and now his name lives on this wall. I stopped in front of his name, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. I remembered his smile, his warm voice, and the nights we stayed up sharing everything. I placed my hand on his name, feeling the coldness of the stone and the warmth of our memories. Around me, others were paying their respects in silence. Some placed flowers. Some wept. Others simply stood still, their eyes lost in thoughts only they could understand. Each person carried a story, a pain, a memory that never truly faded. The solemn air was suddenly broken by loud laughter and voices. A group of teenagers had arrived, running and joking around, unaware or uncaring of the sacredness of the place. One of them said loudly, "Another old war wall? Who even cares?" Their laughter echoed sharply against the stone, and it hurt more than I expected. I turned and saw them, careless, laughing, mocking. Others around me turned too, but no one said a word. I felt something stir inside, an urge, a quiet demand that I do something. I stood there, in front of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where the names of more than 58,000 fallen soldiers were etched into black granite. The air was thick with reverence, broken only by the soft wind and the quiet footsteps of those who came to remember. Every name on that wall carried a story, a life once lived, a sacrifice made. Suddenly, the silence cracked. A group of teenagers approached from the far side, laughing too loud, their voices jarring against the stillness. One of them shouted, "Old dudes crying over war no one cares about." The others snickered, some even pointing at the wall like it was a joke. I felt a pang deep in my chest, not anger, but sorrow. Others in the crowd turned too. Some shook their heads. A few looked down, uncertain whether to speak. But no one did. The disrespect hung in the air, heavy and bitter. That's when I stepped forward. I didn't rush. My legs weren't what they used to be. But each step was sure, deliberate. I walked out from the crowd, shoulders square, boots steady on the ground. I wasn't tall, and I didn't raise my voice. But I carried something else. Years. Loss. Memory. I stopped in front of them. The laughter started to fade. One of the boys looked down. Another tried to smirk, but his eyes gave him away. There was a kind of tension in the air you can't fake, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. "You kids know what this is?" I asked. One shrugged. Another scoffed, half looking away. I didn't respond with scolding. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, I waited a moment, then said quietly, this wall is where I come to stand with my best friend, Joey. We enlisted the same day. We trained together, ate together, laughed together. He never came home." They didn't interrupt. No one even shifted their feet. I told his mama I'd look after him. I made a promise, but I couldn't keep it. He's on this wall now, third row up from the bottom, right there. I pointed with a finger that had once held a rifle in a jungle far from here. I come here every year, not for glory, not for war stories. I come to say sorry. My voice cracked just a little. I let the silence hold. Let them feel it. "It's easy to forget that freedom ain't free," I said. "Someone's son paid for it. Someone's daddy. Someone's buddy." By now, the boys weren't smiling anymore. One of them stared at the wall. Another looked at the ground like he wanted to be anywhere else. I didn't need to say anything more. I turned and walked away. No lecture. No yelling. Just the truth laid bare, like the names on that stone, silent, solemn, and unshakable. And in that moment, the noise was gone. I'm not the kind of man who talks much. The things I've been through, well, they're not easy to explain, and honestly, most of them I've kept to myself all these years. Some memories. If you really live them, you understand they don't need to be told to be believed. They live inside you like old scars. But that day, standing in front of the memorial wall, watching those kids laugh and pose for selfies, I realized that silence wasn't the answer anymore. I stood quietly for a moment before I spoke again. "Joey," I said, my eyes fixed on the stone wall. Joey was my friend. He wasn't a big guy, not some Hollywood soldier type, just a 19-year-old kid from Ohio who cried when he got news that his mama was sick. We met in basic training. We ate together, slept 2 bunks apart, cursed the drill sergeant together. Then one day, they put us on a plane to Vietnam. I took a breath. My throat was dry. We landed in the middle of a monsoon night. Rain in the jungle isn't like anything you've ever seen. It's cold, endless, and it gets into your bones. Every step was a struggle through mud. Every rustle in the bush might be the enemy. I didn't tell this story for drama. I told it because some things, if you don't speak them out loud, they get lost forever. That first night, we heard gunfire. Not ours. It came from deep in the trees, along with screams. Another unit had been ambushed. I remember Joey sitting next to me, clutching his M16 like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. He looked at me and asked, "You think we'll make it home?" I couldn't answer. My voice grew softer, as if I was back there again, in the dark, among the gunshots. Then came July 2nd. We were moving through thick brush when the explosion hit. A mine. I felt myself thrown to the ground. When I opened my eyes, I saw Joey lying about 10 feet away. No breath, no blink. He was gone, just like that. I paused. My eyes stung. The kids weren't laughing anymore. Not one of them moved. I remembered Joey's mother. She wrote me a letter after they got the telegram. "Thank you for being there with him," she said. "I hope he didn't die alone." I never answered her, because I knew the truth. Joey did die alone in the jungle, without a single person left to say his name. I looked at the teenagers, then around at the silent crowd. Some families never got a body back. No funeral. No goodbye. All they have now is a name carved in stone, something cold and lifeless to hold on to when the grief gets too heavy. I didn't speak to make anyone feel guilty. I wasn't asking for pity. I spoke because I believe these young folks, these kids, need to understand something. Freedom doesn't just happen. It's built, brick by brick, with blood and flesh and tears from people like Joey. People who never got to come home. People who never got to fall in love, start a family, live a full life. I spoke in a low, steady voice. Not angry. Not lecturing. I'm not asking you to feel sorry. I just ask that next time you walk by a place like this, stop for a minute, read a name, think of a person. Maybe not Joey, maybe someone else, but someone who once lived, laughed, fought, so you could stand here today free. None of the kids said a word. One turned toward the wall. Another dropped his head. I knew my words wouldn't change the world, but maybe, just maybe, they planted a seed. And sometimes that's enough. I don't know if the words I spoke truly reached them. At first, those kids just stood there, their faces still full of smirks. Some crossed their arms. Others glanced at their phones like they couldn't care less. But I wasn't telling my story hoping for applause or a moral lesson. I told it because I owed Joey something, and because this wall, this place so many pass by without a glance, deserved a voice to speak for those who are no longer here. After I finished, I stood quietly. No one in the crowd said a word. Just a soft breeze stirred the flags and rustled the fallen leaves at our feet. Then I heard a sigh, faint but real, coming from the teenagers. One boy, maybe 16 years old, stepped back a little and then forward again, his eyes no longer sparkling with defiance. He looked straight at the wall, then raised his hand to gently touch a name etched into the stone. I couldn't see whose name it was, but I heard him whisper softly, "I'm sorry." Just those 2 words. No flourish, no pressure. But the whole space fell silent. The group that had been laughing moments before now stood still as stone. Some lowered their heads. Others looked up but found no words. I saw one kid's hand tremble, and he wiped his eyes quickly, maybe thinking I hadn't noticed. But I have lived long enough to see when someone is wrestling with something deep inside. The crowd around us changed too. No clapping, no cheers, no scolding. We just stood there, together in that strange moment, not divided by age or understanding, not split between the careless and the aware, but simply as people, standing before the memory of those who gave their lives. I don't blame those kids. The world they grew up in isn't the world I knew. They live with social media. Quick images flashing by like the wind, easy laughter that often masks the pain underneath. No one teaches them how to be silent in the face of sorrow. But today they learned, not through lectures, but through honest feeling, through a story from the heart of an old man like me. I watched that boy keep his hand on the wall for a few more seconds. Then I nodded quietly at him. He turned away, no smile, no words, but his eyes had changed. I knew that was enough. I turned and walked back to my place, my steps as slow as when I first stepped forward. But this time, my heart felt lighter. The weight I carried earlier had lifted. I had done what I needed to do, not to teach, but to remind, something so easily forgotten, that sacrifice is real, that the names carved into this wall belong to real people, and that every life given was so that freedom could live on today. I stood still, hands folded behind my back, watching the flag flutter quietly above. The sun had just peeked from behind the clouds, its rays touching the wall and making those names sparkle as if they were alive once more in the gaze of the living. Someone behind me whispered softly, "Thank you, sir." I didn't turn around. I just smiled gently. The thanks weren't for me. They were for Joey, for all those who never got a chance to tell their stories. And I was just the one carrying their voice a little further down the road. As a gentle breeze swept through the towering trees and the light began to soften over the memorial wall, where the names of fallen soldiers were etched deep into cold stone, something unexpected happened. The tallest boy in the group, who had seemed indifferent moments before and appeared to lead the others, suddenly spoke up. His voice was neither loud nor angry, but clear and steady, cutting through quiet like a simple, unshakable question. "Where's Mr. Joey's name?" That simple question seemed to make time stop. The old soldier, who had just shared the story of his fallen friend, paused for a moment. He turned his head, his eyes no longer cold or harsh, but deep and silent, like the ocean holding unspoken sorrows. Quietly, he pointed toward a corner of the wall where Joey's name was etched into the stone. The boy stepped closer to the wall, carefully removing his hat in a gesture of respect. He bowed his head slightly, showing reverence and gratitude. No one had told him to do it. No one had forced him. But this small act sparked something in the others. One by one, the rest of the teenagers followed suit, taking off their hats, bowing their heads, and standing silently side by side. That memorial wall was no longer just a cold slab of stone. It had become sacred ground, a place where those names were honored not by loud speeches, but by a meaningful silence. Those names, once mocked by this group only minutes ago, were now met with the deepest respect and gratitude. One boy's voice barely rose above a whisper as he said, "I'm sorry." It was not a half-hearted apology or a forced phrase. It came straight from the heart, a genuine acknowledgement of the truth they had just learned about the sacrifices made by those who came before them. The old soldier nodded quietly. He said nothing more. His nod was not mere acceptance, but profound understanding and comfort for the young souls who had just awakened to the weight of history and responsibility. He knew that in this moment, the young people had learned the value of silence and respect, something they may never have fully understood before. When I left the park that day, a wave of indescribable feelings swept over me. I knew I had witnessed something rare and special, a moment when misunderstanding and discord between generations were softened by sincerity and respect. A younger generation, often judged as reckless and thoughtless by society, had quietly learned to honor the past and listen to the silent pain of those who went before them. That memorial wall, under the fading evening light, was no longer just a cold, lifeless monument. It had become a living testament to the connection between generations. It stood not only as a record of wartime loss, but as a symbol of gratitude passed down through time, not by noisy voices, but by meaningful silence. And today, as I retell this story, I hope no one forgets the lessons in that silence. It reminds us that the freedom we enjoy today was not easily won, but built with real sacrifice and loss. It sends a message to future generations. Cherish, respect, and protect the sacred values handed down by those who came before. That silence, it was not ignorance or indifference. It was deep understanding, a feeling sensed by the heart and soul. It stirred in all of us a reverence, a reminder that no matter how much life changes or generations differ, memory and gratitude endure. I still remember that image of the group of teenagers standing by the wall, saying nothing but showing respect with bowed heads and quiet presence. It was the most memorable moment of my life, a moment that showed me that harmony between generations is not impossible, but can happen when we open our hearts and truly listen to each other. So if you ever visit a memorial wall like this, take a moment of silence. Bow your head with respect, because it is not only honoring the fallen, but bridging the past with the present, connecting sacrifice with the life we live now. The old soldier story is not just about war and loss, but about transformation, faith, and endless gratitude. And in that silence, I heard the echo of many hearts, the echo of a misunderstood generation who quietly taught the young how to cherish and remember what truly matters. If you have ever had a loved one, a friend, or a comrade who did not come home, please take a moment to leave a comment below with their name, because those names deserve to live on, not just etched in cold stone, but forever in our hearts. Let's keep their memory alive together. If you want to hear more stories of sacrifice, loyalty, and brotherhood, stories that warm the heart and shine a light on the values we hold dear, please subscribe to the channel Old Soldier Story. Subscribe today so you won't miss any stories that might change how we see the past, and perhaps even the future. Because sometimes, just one story is enough to spark hope and connection between generations.